When it comes to reversing type 2 diabetes, can cardio alone cut it? That and more on this episode. Hey, welcome to the Diabetes Remission Roadmap podcast with the two renegade pharmacists, Brian Bisher and Cory Jenks. You are listening to this because you are a person with type 2 diabetes who is committed and driven to breaking free from this diagnosis and creating a real, meaningful change in your health and life. In these episodes, we're here to help you ditch the scripts with doses of unconventional wisdom on topics such as fitness, nutrition, medication, mindset, and more. So without any further delay, let's dive right in. What's up, Cory?
Hey, I'm glad to see you. I didn't
Man.
know if I was going to see you again, Brian. You had an adventure this morning.
I did have an adventure. So yeah, I was walking. Actually, I walked home from the mechanic. That's was a fun drop off, and then I was like, I'm just gonna walk home because cardio. It's great for you, right? Talk about that
Mm,
later.
yeah.
Uh, the funny thing is, I was looking for a shortcut, and I ended up getting lost. I was back in these neighborhoods with no sidewalks and just unfamiliar with it. And the whole thing was kind of confusing. I was even looking at my Google Maps, but I knew there was a spot I could cut through, like a private drive, and
Mm.
it kind of like got in my neighbor's yard right by my house. I just couldn't find it. I was like, ended up at different parts of the neighborhood, seeing different houses I recognized, but ultimately I just could not find it. I was actually down the right street, but I was looking on the wrong side of the street. And so I turned around, walked all like backtracked, and ultimately ended up walking down the same street and then looking at the right side, I'm like, oh, there's where I'm looking for. So it was a fun adventure. It took a little longer than I thought, but luckily it was a nice morning.
Yeah, and you're back. I like what happened to you, not because you got lost and had extra time to talk with me on the phone, but because I think it's a great metaphor for people who are well-intentioned trying to control their blood sugar or reverse their diabetes. Because if you go down the wrong road or you try to take the wrong shortcut, you actually end up further away from your goal than if you had the right map, so to speak. Am I right?
Yeah, I think
So,
you're right about that.
yeah,
Even Google
so
Maps could help me.
so I think one of these false shortcuts that people fall into for blood sugar management, weight management, overall health is thinking that cardio is the way to go. If you run enough, if you bike enough, if you swim enough, you can eat whatever you want, your blood sugar will be good and you're set to go. And the truth is, cardio alone isn't cutting it, Brian, for blood sugar management. And let me tell you why. I had a patient recently who came to me and was baffled because they told me that they bike regularly, they swim regularly, and their A1C was 14%, which means that their average blood sugar was like over 300, which is insanely high.
What medications
And
were they on? I'm just curious. Do you?
they were not on any medications. They had it was a shock to them. Like they had been pre-diabetic or managed things reasonably well without medicines for a very long time, and they went to the doctor and their blood sugar was out of control. And they were under this impression that because I do cardio, that my blood sugar will be controlled. But
Hmm.
it doesn't cut it, Brian. Now, if you're listening to this and you're doing cardio, don't stop. Don't stop being active, okay? It's so much better to be active and have that base of cardiovascular fitness than not. So I don't want you to think that like you're a failure, you're a bad person. But I think we've been given this false sense that if you can move enough, just using cardio, that it will control your sugar. But it does not, Brian. Any hypotheses as to why this might be the case and why this particular patient was struggling with their blood sugar?
Well, yeah, of course I know, Cory. Just want I want to hear from you, or I guess help explain to me, like I don't know. I really think that would benefit them because, of course, yeah, I recognize the answer here, and I'm not going to give it away. I'll let you explain it to me, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into just pretend I don't know. Let's just go with that.
So you pretend you don't know why cardio alone does not cut managing blood
Yes,
sugar.
yes.
Okay, so this is a theme that we talk about a lot. Is there when we consume glucose or we have glucose in our blood, there are a few different ways to manage it, dispose of it, or avoid high sugar. So one option is to put less sugar in. So if you consume less foods with sugar in it or foods that turn into sugar, then you will not have as high a blood sugar. Okay. Now, this particular patient described their diet and they were starting their day off with 8 ounces of juice every day.
Mm.
Now, juice for me in diabetes has one purpose, and that is if your blood sugar is crashing low and you're going to die because your sugars are dropping too low, then I want you to drink some juice because it will rapidly raise your blood sugar. So they were starting their day with a big old blood sugar bolus, okay? A big old blood sugar spike. So no, number one would be to cut back on the sugar to lower your sugar.
I'm just curious, why was that person doing that? Did they have a reason?
Juice is healthy, Brian. It's fruit.
Okay.
It was fresh squeezed. It was fresh squeezed
Oh,
juice. It
gotcha.
was
Okay.
fresh squeezed. So it was obviously, and this is not to make light of them. This is someone who was doing the best with the information they've been given.
Mm,
However, the information they were given is wrong. So I'm not punching down on this particular person. I'm punching up on the stupid system that set them up to fail. So let me
yeah.
make that real clear if you're thinking I'm not compassionate, because we spent an hour together discussing what we're going to talk about in a few minutes. So that's number one, put less sugar in. Number two is burn sugar off. And this is what this person was trying to do with their cardio. If you are active, you're utilizing glucose for energy, it will help lower your blood sugar. However, circling back to point one, something that I like to say is you cannot outrun your fork. So they were realizing that despite all of the cardio they were doing, their sugars were still high because they were not moving enough to undo the high sugars that they were having. So that is number two. Burn it off with your activity.
Mm,
The third one is the missing leg of this triangle, and it's the one that often is overlooked. It's probably our favorite one. I know you're pretending that you don't know what I'm talking about, but it's build a bigger storage tank, which is code for muscle building. Why do we care about building muscle? So when we consume glucose, we can either burn it for energy or we have to store it. Now we can store glucose as this substance called glycogen. We can store it in our liver and we can store it in our muscles. If we run out of storage space, then we store it as fat or it spills into the blood. We run out of space to store it. We can't build a bigger liver. We don't want to do that, but we can build bigger muscles. And if you have more muscle, you have more capacity to store sugar, to store it as glycogen. And I honestly, I tell people it's almost like a cheat code for carbs and sugar. It allows your body more capacity to store it. This person, just looking at them, you can't see them because it's an audio podcast and they're not here right now, did not have any muscle on their body. They were active, but they didn't really have muscle. So there was no place for that sugar to go unless they burned it off. And if you're consuming the amount of sugar they were, and beyond what their day started with the big old glass of juice, there was a lot of hidden sugar in their diet they weren't aware of. So there was nowhere for that sugar to go, even with all of their activity.
yeah. Thank you, Corey. That definitely helps explain it and helps me understand. Yeah, of course, though, we talked about this before in our previous podcast, like, idea of building a bigger storage tank. And I've seen this a lot with people who do just exclusively cardio, like a lot of runners, where they just get so skinny because their metabolic rate can just get so high, and muscle is it requires a lot of energy to keep. So if you're not sending that signal of strength training, resistance training to keep it, then your body is of course just going to be like, oh, we don't need this, right? And sugar, while they're taking a lot of sugar to kind of fuel those, they're not probably getting a whole lot of nutrition, which we talked about, right? The difference between
Mhm.
nutrition, energy, nutrition being protein and minerals, vitamins, and then the energy, sugar and fat, carbs and fat. So yeah, their body's just like, let's get rid of some of this muscle. We don't need it. Obviously, we're just running. It's probably suits us better. We're just doing cardio. It suits us better to weigh less to keep it
Mhm.
moving. And yeah, it's like depends on the signals you send your body. So and like going back to the runners, I don't know, you've probably seen them, the runners that they're marathon runners. They run all the time, but then they have like these guts, right?
Mhm.
What is
Yep.
it? What is it about the runner's gut that you can kind of, did this person have like a gut kind of too to go with like their skinniness about them, or what
Yeah, it
was
was sort
their,
of the TOFI, thin on the outside, fat on the inside
yeah.
body type, where there's a lot of we call visceral fat, which is fat around the organs, the liver, the pancreas. It's all concentrated there. But yeah, it was. You wouldn't look at them and say, "Wow, they're morbidly obese," but to the trained eye, which you and I have those trained eyes, we look for muscle and we look at that visceral, that abdominal obesity. So they didn't have any muscle, but they were trying to burn it all off, and they were putting too much into the system to manage, and thus their blood sugars were dangerously high.
Yeah. And I don't want any people thinking like all the chronic marathon runners out there are going to develop type 2 diabetes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's the body type, it's the signals you send your body about losing muscle. It's and probably in this person's case too, the hyper stress that too much activity with not enough recovery can do on
Mhm.
the body. Like just you get high cortisol levels, the stress hormone, not enough recovery.
Well,
And
let's stop on that for a moment. High cortisol, why is that important in diabetes? Cortisol tells our liver to produce more sugar. So you're actually going to be doing what's called gluconeogenesis, putting more sugar into your blood if you are in a chronically stressed state. So, and then like exercise is a stress, okay, and it's okay. It could be there can be distress, which is bad. There can be eustress, which is where we stress our body and it responds and it gets stronger, which can be with the right amount of exercise. But if you are chronically doing lots of cardio, not recovering, not fueling your body appropriately, that is actually a stress on the body. So that is something to consider when trying to figure out exercise. And in a world where there's limited time to do things, like Brian and I have little kids, there's limited time to do stuff. And so if you have 2 hours a week to exercise and you devote all of it to cardio, you're missing a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to blood sugar management. And it's just not talked about. Strength training isn't really a thing. And 100 years ago, 200 years ago, when society was much more physical labor centric, that physical training happened. That muscle happened because you had to be strong to work on a farm or in a factory. We typed away at our little computers and our cubicles, and the finger muscles are not big enough to store a lot of glycogen. So we have to artificially create this muscle through strength training in the gym or at home, whatever way works for you.
yeah, well said, man. And let's just talk about what can someone do who's maybe like they're in love with cardio, like they like the way it makes them feel, they get that runner's high.
Mhm.
How does someone balance the two if cardio alone doesn't cut it? What do they do?
As little as 2 sessions a week of 15 minutes of strength training can get you to tremendous improvement in your strength and your blood sugar management. It does not have to cut into a lot of the cardio that you love. And with the workouts that we structure, like you could do this in 2 minute increments throughout 2 days during the week. So literally, if you are watching TV during a commercial, you could do a set of our exercises and be done with your push-ups or be done with your bicep curls or be done with your dips. TV comes back on, you sit down, and then during the next commercial break, you could be a quarter of the way done with your workout. If putting a 15-minute chunk of time together is too much, or if you're at work between bathroom breaks or anything of that nature, you can fit this in. It's actually incredible. I have a friend that literally just started doing 100 push-ups a day while cooking every day, and he grew muscle. It was not a fancy program. It was not, there was no steroids. He's in his late 30s. So it's not like he's got the testosterone of an 18-year-old that's pumping him up. But your body will respond when you give it the appropriate inputs. And he was amazed. It was just like a couple months of consistent push-ups got him there. So it could even be that. You could choose to space out 100 push-ups in a day. It doesn't have to be complicated. And I think this is where diabetes management really irritates me is that we make things way too complicated. We create these multiple flavors of type 2 diabetes. We create all these different drugs. We create these guidelines of 150 minutes of activity a week. But you could literally do 50 to 100 push-ups a day and get better results than trying to do all these complicated interventions. So
Yeah,
um, there, and to me, it's non-negotiable because if you love cardio and your sugar is 300, it's not getting you to your goals. So as much as you love cardio, then you have to make the time to put in these changes to your routine to manage your sugars. So
yeah,
it's not what people want to hear. Like it's like I did my workout this morning. I went for a walk, talked to you while you were lost, came home, walked into my office, told my wife, I really am not looking forward to this. And 17 minutes later, I was done with my workout. It was one of the two strength workouts I did this week, and I was glad I did it. And it sucked a little bit, and then it's done. So, but also having high sugars and taking insulin sucks. So, which
choose
to
your
bring it back
side.
to the theme of like, there's no happy, easy way. There's just different hard ways. And I think our way is less hard than nonstop insulin injections and finger sticks.
Yeah, for sure. I would add body squats to the push-ups, but only because those muscles are bigger. But that's besides the point. The point I think we're trying to make here is that cardio alone doesn't cut it. Now, cardio does alone actually reduce insulin resistance, like in the cell, in the muscles. But you need that muscle tissue to be there in adequate amounts. And plus, I don't know what it is, just for me at least, cardio makes me like hungrier, makes me crave more type of energy dense foods. And when your body is just kind of like at type 2 diabetes, you've reached that personal fat threshold. Like if you're not truly like tapping into those fat stores, your body, your storage tanks are full. You're constantly like just pouring into a tank that's already full, and your activity levels don't actually empty the tanks enough. They're too small. You're just kind of be stuck in that cycle of just trying to burn and earn, burn and earn. It's not going to work. So that's why you got to like slow it down. I would probably say, cut back on the cardio just a little bit, not to say like too much. I mean, too much cardio can probably be counterproductive to muscle growth, when you say, or is there like,
Yeah, but I think if you're like this is marathon level of cardio or
okay,
cyclist level of cardio or chronic swimmer, and my body is just not meant for long distances. So I've never experienced that chronic cardio issue. But all this to say, I think we need to bring it home here, Brian. We have so many topics that interest us, but cardio alone does not cut it for type 2 diabetes, which is code for find a way to build some muscle. And it could mean doing push-ups. It can mean we have a program that we like. Anything that you can do to build your glycogen stores is going to help with long-term glucose management, but continue to do some cardio because it's good for your longevity, your overall health, your mental health too. I think a good long run or walk is good for your brain too. So it just means that we got to modify things a bit because the ultimate thing we need to look at is what you're doing working. If your A1C is 14, your program does not work. So we need to change the program. If you're listening and you're saying, Cory, I run every day. I've never done a push-up. I've never touched a weight. My blood sugar's great and I feel great. Cool, it's working. Like you got to check in with yourself and make sure that the check-in is showing that it works. But if it's not, there's a good chance that you're missing out on management without not having enough muscle. So find a way to lift some weights, do some body weight squats, do some push-ups, and you will hopefully find an improvement in long-term sugar management.
yeah. And I'm happy to send that program out too. So if anyone just emails me, I'm happy to send it out. So
Yeah, this is not some proprietary secret, but we can certainly we want to share it with people. So yeah, if you're listening and you're like, I want that program, send us a message, send us an email, and we will get it to you and get you on the road to remission,
yeah,
thanks to muscle. And just make sure that if you're on a road and you're cutting through people's yards, you know where you're going, or you'll end up lost like Brian did this morning, wandering through, becoming he was basically the villain in all of those Ring doorbell commercials, like someone in your
yeah,
backyard. Stranger in the backyard, stranger danger. That was Brian, folks. So to everyone
yeah,
in the Cincinnati area who he disturbed this morning, on his behalf, I apologize.
yeah. I
So
wonder how many Ring doorbells went off on my behalf. Well, we'll see. We'll never know. But it was great being back with you again, Cory. The couple
yeah,
solo episodes were fun, but
mhm.
this was more fun. So let's just keep doing this.
As long as you don't get wandering off in the woods, we'll be back together soon.
All right. See you guys next time. Thanks for listening. Now go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode, and you can join us on the journey and roadmap to remission.